So I've made it out to my next location here at Dovercourt, and it's only just down the road, a short walk from where I was parked up at the lighthouse, or even shorter drive, which it ended up being. But made it out to this little pond here by, I think it's the Leisure Club, but looking out over to the beach huts here. Now these beach huts are being backlit by the light that's obviously being created today, and a really sort of minimalistic image that I'm creating, and I'm really liking that. I think with obviously the bit of the lake here or pond in the foreground, then obviously the bank of grass with obviously the beach huts on top of that, and then the bright sky behind as well, making for a bit of an overexposed image. And I think that's what I'm quite enjoying today, is being able to play around with obviously the manual settings on the camera to create that little bit more of an interesting image, not necessarily exposing to make sure that everything is obviously all there and balance the histogram, play with the histogram and make sure that it's a little bit creative is what I'm liking about today's shoot, particularly for this composition that I've got in front of me. Yeah, really interesting. So settings wise, got the camera on about 18mm and taking images at 18mm, but then obviously zoomed in as well, and again post up the settings for that image as well when I post it. But really liking it. About around about 1/80th of a second as the exposure, and that's sort of blowing out the pond in the foreground and the sky behind, but silhouetting the actual beach huts as well. And I think hopefully in post-production as well, pulling out the detail and the colour within the beach huts, because they're really fantastic colours and some detail on there as well, working out really interesting. Now one of the things I might need to do in post-production is clone out some of the lampposts or flagpoles in the background as well, because yeah, they're a bit of a distraction. I don't really want that. I want that sort of thin line of the grass and the beach huts as well. Ooh, almost. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to look at today with these compositions, and yeah, enjoyable, even with the wind. As I said earlier, there's more to shoot here at Dovercourt than the actual lighthouse, and really enjoying this location to come to visit. Hopefully there's one more location I want to visit here in Dovercourt, and I'll pack up now and go and find that one. So I've made it out to the fort here at Dovercourt, overlooking the port of Harwich and Felixstowe, to basically the mouth of where the port starts and obviously the North Sea begins. Really interesting little walk around the old World War II fort here. Unfortunately, I don't think you can actually get into the fort or around the actual ramparts, which is a shame really, because they're always the interesting bits, aren't they, from a photographic point of view. But like I was saying earlier, there's more to photograph here at Dovercourt than you first think of the lighthouse. So I've taken a quick composition looking back over the port of Felixstowe and Harwich as well, in landscape orientation, and about sort of 2 or 3, maybe even 4 images as a panoramic, and obviously stitch that together just as a more of a documentary shot of where I'm actually at. Because this is the shot that I really wanted to look at when obviously I was doing my research about this location. It's obviously part of the land going out, and obviously segregating obviously where the port is on my left hand side, and obviously the open sea on the right and behind you. And as it's sort of leading straight out there, you've obviously got the marker buoy right at the end, or marker point right at the end. You can't go any further because obviously this railing, and sensible because of that, it's going to be very slippy, wet, and you don't obviously want to fall in when you're out there and cause any issues. But what I'm liking about this shot, and what I'm going to do with this shot, is I've taken one image at f11 ISO 100 and 100th of a second as the test shot. I'm going to put on the 10 stop filter now and try to extend the shutter speed for as long as possible. So I'm probably going to increase the f-stop and hopefully get at least sort of a minute long exposure, because smoothing out the water, smoothing out the sky, trying to eliminate any of the ships and movement in the background as much as possible will hopefully work out to make this image that little bit more interesting. So I've got the 10 stop filter on now and roughly working out to be about a minute, maybe slightly longer exposure. So what you actually need to remember to do when you're obviously taking super long exposure, so anything what I class as super long exposure, anything over sort of 20 to 30 seconds plus, you need to make sure that you're covering up the eyepiece as well. Now luckily enough, I've remembered to bring the little attachment that's normally on the straps around the camera that you obviously get, but this obviously will slot over the actual eyepiece. So just removing the actual eyepiece protection that you normally get, and this will then just slot nicely, he says, over there and protect any light leaking into the actual back of the camera. So I'm focused on right at the far end of the sea wall, so hopefully will work out really quite nicely. Now let's wake the camera back up. I've set the 77D as well. You've got a bulb timer in it as well. So I've got it for 1 minute exposure. Settings are f22, ISO 100, 18mm on the lens. Let's cook it for 1 minute. And that's the timer gone. Let's have a quick look on the back of the camera. Check the focus and the sharpness. Yeah, really enjoying that one. And also with the lay of the land here, it's kind of converging onto that sort of vanishing point right in the far distance there and leading the eye through the actual image. Yeah, really enjoying that one. The colour of the sea as well is kind of reflected in the greyness of the sky as well, and yeah, it's really quite interesting. Really do like that one. I think the 1 minute exposure has not overexposed it, which is good, so you're obviously able to at least play around with it and just adjust it correctly when you're back in Lightroom, etc. That's yeah, really enjoyable for that one. So I'm really enjoying that composition there and the long exposure. So took a second shot, same composition, just extended the shutter speed to 1 minute 15. Yeah, both the 1 minute, 1 minute 15, not much of a difference between it, but at least when I'm obviously back in the computer editing it, I can obviously compare both images and which one I would prefer. Obviously I'll post that one and again put the settings down below as well. Yeah, but it as I said earlier, it shows that just doing that little bit of research, you can find a location that has actually more than one thing to offer. So making it back into the warmth of the car now after looking around the fort as well. But what a fantastic shoot I've had here over in Dovercourt, both at the lighthouse, then at the beach huts, and now here at the fort and looking out across obviously the North Sea. Lovely, really enjoyable, and that really shows, as I mentioned several times, about doing a little bit of research can really prove valuable for looking at a location and getting multiple locations within one sort of geographical area. And yeah, really enjoyed it today. Hopefully you have as well, so please make sure you give it a thumbs up. Please make sure you comment as well, so as I say, really enjoy it, those comments, and please consider subscribing if you haven't subscribed already. And until next time, take care.